The conference is the annual highlight of the Zero Project, where you bring a full year's work to life.
The global community working in the field of disability and development.
I think this room, more than any room, understands the demographics of disability. It's big.
You're willing to support those innovators.
Innovation is often a driver for inclusion, and that in order for us to have full inclusion, we need to insist on the participation of persons with disabilities.
Nothing about us without us meant a significant change in the world.
To make the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities a reality in every region of every nation on the globe.
You make the most huge conference feel special and being part of a family.
Zero Project is a wonderful place to share, as we've heard, the innovations that improve the lives of disabled people.
We want to make sure that we create a future that is accessible to everyone.
Zero barriers must be the ultimate goal.
It's not about having special needs. It's about having equal human rights.
And it makes me getting up fighting for my daughter every day of my life so easy when I am inspired by all of you.
Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the kickoff event for the Zero Project Conference 2024 on the topic of inclusive education and IT. Inclusion, you've heard it, is to include everyone, and this means that education plays a major role. It's the first step for participation in the education system and in the labor market. Many fascinating technical innovations allow people with disabilities to participate in all areas of life. I'm looking forward to today's event, and it's an event we have been holding here in the Austrian Parliament building regularly to kick off the Zero Project Conference that will take place at the UN premises for the next year. I'm very delighted to see that so many people have come here to hold this event with us, to be with us today. And it is my pleasure to welcome some of you, in particular today's host, the President of the National Council of the Austrian Parliament, Wolfgang Sobotka. Thank you for having us here in this wonderful place again this year. I would also like to welcome the co-host of today's event, the founder of Essl Foundation and of the initiative Zero Project, Martin Essl. It is my particular honor to welcome the Ambassador of Japan, His Excellency Ryuta Mizuki. Major honor for us to welcome today's keynote speaker, who has invited our invitation, Roberta Cordano. A very warm welcome to you. It's a very strong sign that all parliamentary parties are contributing to establishing, to promoting the innovations. Let me in particular welcome the party spokespersons for persons with disability in Parliament. They have an active role. They will present the innovations, namely Kira Grünberg of the Austrian People's Party, Verena Nussbaum of the Socialist Party, Christian Araga of the Freedom Party has had to be excused. He tried to be here. He could not make it, but he's wishing us all the best for today's event. Thank you for that. Sibylle Hamann from the Greens. as well as Fiona Fiedler of the NEOS party. On the government bench to my right and to my left, we have some experts who will put the innovations presented today through their paces in a brief Q&A. Let us give a warm welcome to the President of the Austrian Disability Council, Klaus Wiedel, Ombudsperson for Persons with Disability, Christine Steger, the Vice President of the Advocacy Group ÖTSIF, Karin Stöckler, the Chairperson of the Advocacy Group for the Blind, Elmar Fürst, the Chairperson of the Monitoring Committee, Tobias Buchner, the member of the Initiative for Women with Disabilities, Heidemarie Ecker, and the President of the Umbrellas Association for a Self-Determined Life, Selbstbestimmt Leben in Österreich, Bernadette Feuerstein. Thank you to all of you for being here today. Then the CEO of Light for the World, Julia Moser, and Katharina Prennis from WAG Assistenzgenossenschaft, another advocacy group. A very warm welcome to all of you. Let me also give a warm welcome to the Secretary General of Parliament, Harald Dossi, who will give the closing remarks later on. It is also a particular pleasure to welcome the presenters of the innovations who have come a long way to be here today, just like all our international guests who are with us today. Good morning to all of you. And the fact that the Austrian Parliament is really supporting this cause is emphasized by the many members of the Austrian National and Federal Council who are here with us today. A very warm welcome to you as well. And then, of course, let me also give a cordial welcome to all representatives of advocacy groups, associations, to the audience in the room, and everyone connected via live stream. So even if you're far away, you can still be with us today. These are the wonders of technology. A very, very warm welcome to all of you once again. Now, I've been talking for way too long. I'm looking forward now to the opening remarks of the President of the National Council, Wolfgang Sobotka. Ladies and gentlemen, let me extend a very warm welcome to all of you. You are the lobbyists, those people who promoted the agenda for persons with disabilities, not just in Austria, but all over the world. Welcome to the plenary hall of the Austrian Parliament. Dear Martin, it's for the 5th time that we meet here in Austria. We used to say that when you meet more than twice, this has definitely become a tradition, and that's true for this event as well. And I'm also glad to see that representatives from all the parliamentary parties are present here today or represented. This shows how important this topic has become. It's becoming a focus for everyone. And if we all gather here today, this is a sign that we will not be divided, but that, especially with regard to this topic, we want to show that we stand united. Martin, you told me a short while ago that this is a record event. This year you have participants from more than 100 countries who will be taking part in the debate, in the conference that will take place for the next 3 days here in Vienna, who participate in promoting the projects that have been in particular dedicated to inclusive education this year. The Austrian Parliament as well has dealt with this topic, and in our democracy workshops, to which we welcome 10,000 young people every year, when it comes to understanding the basic fundamentals of democracy, right here in this building on the 4th floor, we are holding the first workshop of this year, which is called Parliament is Coming to Your Place, and it's held for people who want to participate in democracy in a self-determined way. And we're using easy language today to open this to everyone. This is focusing, of course, on people with disabilities, but it's also about creating awareness for the 183 MPs united here in Parliament that they need to promote this with society as a whole. I think that this and accessibility overall must become and has become an obvious approach for us in many ways of life, in schools, in public places. It has to become an obvious matter in all other places that are being used by people in their daily lives. Our regions, the Länder, play a particular role in this because they have many competencies when it comes to building permits and to many other areas. So they hold the key to opening this up for all of us. And the Parliament's role is fundamental in this as well. We have the 3 levels of the Austrian constitution that we have to make use of in order to bring this thought down to the very local level, to the municipalities. Everyone in Austria should be raised in the awareness, should be educated in the awareness that accessibility is something that goes without saying. In order to make possible what Lincoln very aptly described in saying that you do not support people if you do things for them that they can do themselves. So that's one of the fundamental aspects that we're obliged to. And with this, I would like to come to the end of my statement. I'm very delighted to see you here, and I would like to thank you for everything you do in your day-to-day work, from the ombudsperson for people with disabilities to everyone in your associations and organizations. And I'm particularly pleased to see that our public broadcaster in Austria, ORF, has also taken this occasion to broadcast today's event to the Austrian people. This is very important throughout the year. Martin Essl has inspired many people in Austria. He and many of his staff and colleagues have become a household name. We are proud of your organization, proud to be saying that we have achieved this in Austria. It's the only organization that is organizing an event of this type together with the United Nations. So we can see that a small organization can start a large movement. Thank you to you, to your family, to your commitment. We know that many people contribute to this, but there's always the need for one person to start this. And you've been inspiring me as well, and I would like to thank you for that again. I wish you a fruitful and interesting morning, a wonderful conference for the next 3 or 4 days in Vienna, and I hope that we will become the country and the capital of inclusion also at an international level. Welcome again, and thank you for being with us today.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Präsident, dass wir
Thank you very much to the Speaker of the Austrian Parliament, and let me also thank Martin Essl and invite him to come up to the podium for his opening remarks.
Sehr geehrter Herr
President of the National Council, Mr. Sobotka, dear Ambassador Mizuki from Japan, former Federal Chancellor Brigitte Bierlein, Secretary General of the Austrian Parliament, Mr. Dossi, members of Parliament, dear Bobby Cordano, President of the Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C., and our keynote speaker today, dear Zero Project awardees from abroad, friends from the White Hens Choir, representatives of public administration and civil society, of business, dear Austrian Zero Project awardees, ladies and gentlemen, here in the National Council plenary chamber, and everyone who's following online. This is the 5th time we have the honor of holding the kickoff event for the Zero Project conference in Parliament, and it's the 2nd time we are gathering here in the renovated, largely accessible Parliament building. This invitation is also an important symbol for us. Parliament is there for all of us, for people with and without disabilities. Thank you very much again, President Sobotka and Secretary General Dossi. This time we have brought 5 innovations from Zero Project Award winners that can leave their mark on the inclusive education system when implemented. For those of you who cannot see me, I would like to verbally introduce myself. My name is Martin Essl. I'm the founder of the non-profit Essl Foundation, a man in his early 60s with some hair left on my head. I'm wearing a dark suit, a white shirt, and a tie. The tie is green, which is not just a symbol of the Zero Project logo, but also a symbol of life, hope, and renewal. Today and this year, the event and the Zero Project conference are dedicated to inclusive education. Access to it has to do with human dignity and is the basis for a self-determined life and for the opportunity to find paid work. To this day, people with disabilities do not have the same access to education and learning aids as people without disabilities. Now, what do we do at Zero Project? What makes Zero Project so important? Zero Project stands for full inclusion and for a world without barriers, and it supports the achievement of the goals of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Fundamental changes in society require innovation, and this is why the Essl Foundation, a non-profit organization, in 2008, the year in which the UN CRPD was ratified by Austria, so in 2008, the Essl Foundation founded an innovation network which today consists of 10,000 experts and organizations from 160 countries, and it has honored, over 900 innovations from 150 countries at the UN premises in Vienna. In order to find innovative solutions, we organize an elaborate and transparent process every year, which involves around 1,000 experts with and without disabilities from all over the world. It takes about 6 months from the nomination phase to the final selection of the awardees, and in the end we have roughly 70 to 80 innovations that we are pleased to present during the kickoff event and during the conference as such. Now, what is the impact of Zero Project? Outstanding solutions often remain hidden. They are not even known on a national level. It is also very often not possible for decision makers in the public sector to recognize potential, and so many things simply don't change. Zero Project provides decision makers, civil society, businesses, and academia with a selection of high-quality projects that have been analyzed and selected by the global Zero Project community. However, we do not just provide dry facts, rather we offer a lively platform and the opportunity to network, to inspire and support each other. And we do a lot to achieve this, from the Zero Project report, the Zero Project database, To social media and our Zero Project conference, as President Sobotka mentioned, it is taking place at the UN premises here in Vienna. And in addition, we present these innovations in roughly 24 events all over the world. So now let's move on to today's event here in Parliament. Every year, the community meets here in the plenary chamber of Parliament, and the popularity of the initiative proves it right. This year, more than 300 participants have registered. Many thanks to all of you. 10 of them, and 10 of the representatives of associations are sitting here on the government bench, which is quite a reversal of the usual approach. And I think this is something that we can all be pleased of, and I am pleased of in particular. I'm particularly grateful that once again this year, disability and education spokespersons from all parties have agreed to mentor a Zero Project innovation of their own choice, whose impact they are convinced of, and they act as a mentor to that and thus create a stimulus to support them here in Austria. They will present these innovations together with the 5 Zero Project awardees. This year's topic is inclusive and accessible education, and it cannot be overestimated how important this is. Inclusive education is a basic prerequisite for a self-determined life and for good job prospects. Most education systems still segregate children with disabilities. So from the time they start nursery school and on to their adulthood, a second-class route is basically predetermined for these children. Special needs schools are usually followed by a sheltered workshop, and there's no open route to the mainstream labor market. And ladies and gentlemen, there's one other aspect that is so often overlooked. By excluding children with disabilities from mainstream schools, we take so much away from society as a whole. There's a lack of naturally interacting with one another, a lack of diversity, we're missing the shared fun, and many other things that would enrich society as a whole. The 77 Zero Project awardees of this year have developed outstanding innovative solutions and technologies for this, and this is the link to today's event here at the Austrian Parliament, because this link, and hopefully what emerges from it, is the impact of the Zero Project that I described at the outset. And so I'm delighted that we can today announce that the complete compilation of our scientific publications have been integrated in the parliamentary library. There's a wealth of information on the goals of the UN Convention and around 900 proven, effective and scalable innovations on inclusive education, employment in the mainstream labor market, accessibility, self-determined living, political participation, inclusive art and IT solutions for all areas of life. May this serve as an inspiration for good debates and political decisions for a barrier-free Austria, and may it serve as support and information for all members of the National Council and the Federal Council here in the Austrian Parliament. Let us now be inspired by 5 great educational innovations and then enjoy an inclusive large youth choir, the White Hens Choir, that has traveled all the way here from Japan to perform some exceptional musical pieces in an inclusive manner.
Lieber Martin, herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much to you, dear Martin, for your introductory remarks and for pointing out how important this topic is. We are very glad to be able to show the importance of education also for people with disabilities. I was lucky enough to attend a dream school. And of course, this benefited me very much because it enriched my education and it also enriched my environment, because everyone realized that just because I'm missing one arm, it doesn't mean I can't do things. So this was certainly of benefit also to my environment. So I myself am glad that I had a chance to contribute. And this is something that's missing in many cases, these possibilities to interact and to show that, of course, persons with disabilities also have the right to education and to access to the labor market. And we're very pleased to be able to show this way today, that there must be a way to include people in the labor market also if they have disabilities. Before we move on with this, I would like to introduce another topic that is also very important for education, that is to say language that has many facets, many ways in order to be sure that we can take everyone along. We have a very high quality keynote speaker today, Roberta Cordano, the president of Gallaudet University, and she will talk on language equity and bilingualism. She will be speaking to us in American Sign Language, and I'm very much looking forward to welcoming Roberta Cordano. Thank you for being here. You have the floor.
It takes a moment for a deaf person to make sure logistics are all arranged accordingly so we have clear access to the sign language. I wanted to recognize President Sobotka, as well as Mr. Dosi, Ambassador from Japan, Martin Essl, President of the Essl Foundation, and members of Parliament, as well as others who are watching via live stream. To the deaf community as well, who may be watching here and from afar. It is indeed an honor for me to be here with you all today. This was made possible by the Zero Project, specifically Martin Essl, who was really the brainchild of creating this wonderful vision, this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, and it's been an honor to be a part of your efforts. The work of the Zero Project and the work that Gallaudet is doing on a daily basis strives to do one single thing, and that is to bring equity as well as opportunities to people in the disability community, always with the goal being of eliminating unemployment for all people with disabilities. Mr. Essl and his team have known for a number of people that the goal is to look to the ideas that can be created, that actually work. So I'm here with you today as part of the broader events that will be taking place around inclusive education. And I am particular in looking at the role of education in advancing people with disabilities' lives. President Abraham Lincoln once said that education is the key to winning the race of life. And at that time, President Lincoln and our American counterpart to the Parliament here, Congress, had signed the first ever charter in the world. That charter was the one that founded a national college serving deaf individuals in the United States, now known as Gallaudet University. That charter was signed in 1864, 160 years ago. In fact, April 8th, we'll be celebrating that anniversary. When Mr. Essl came to Gallaudet before the pandemic, and you know we always describe life as before or after the pandemic, that milestone is the one we mark our lives in, and I believe Mr. Essl came to Gallaudet prior to the pandemic. it was clear that he saw something at Gallaudet that works. So why is it that Gallaudet works? I say that because Gallaudet is a place where everyone communicates in sign language, from the members of our board of trustees to the president to the executive team running the university, including our faculty, staff, and students. Everyone at Gallaudet communicates using sign language. And if you're learning to sign, you have a place as well. And if you're not able to sign, then we have interpreters to provide support to communication. This is a wonderful example of inclusive education that actually works at Gallaudet University. We at Gallaudet have produced over 15,000 living alumni who live all over the world. Many of them leave the university, some stay in the United States and become innovators, leaders, and change makers. Speaking more specifically here in your parliament, you have the first ever deaf individual who is here, Helena Jarmer. And I believe she's somewhere here in the audience. I do see her now. She is the first, oh yes, let's acknowledge her and her work. She is the first culturally deaf woman here in Austria to become a member of parliament. Quite an honor. The first deaf woman in the world to become a member of parliament actually was in South Africa. And that happened to be an alumna of Gallaudet, Wilma Nieuwhout-Druchen. She also serves on the Gallaudet Board of Trustees presently, so you might say she's my boss. She received her bachelor's, master's, and honorary doctorate from Gallaudet University. From a human rights and language minority rights perspective, something that this country, Austria, understands very well, there are three key things that are essential for each person to be able to acquire and become fluent in a language. And that draws from three fundamental elements. First is access to sign language. Access is what's key here. Secondly, you must have a rich language environment. And thirdly, that's essential, is you must have the experience of being able to interact with individuals using that language. The campus that we have at Gallaudet University has a birth to 21-year-old educational program, a university component to our program offering bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs, as well as special training programs for individuals after college. At Gallaudet, we teach primarily using American Sign Language. English as a spoken language is taught primarily in its printed form. Our daily experiment is proof that access to a rich language environment and opportunities to interact on a daily basis for everyone results in success. We have become global leaders. We've been able to demonstrate how people can live bilingually using American Sign Language and English. And that evidence is irrefutable. Deaf people are able to do anything with sign language. That is clearly evident. I'd like to share with you today an example. If you're looking for an example as to how a deaf person or a person with disability is able to thrive, lead, and produce revenue, just look to Gallaudet as that example. We have a board of trustees that's made up of 51% of the individuals deaf as a result of a protest that took place in 1988 led by our students. We now have the fourth deaf president. I'm the first deaf female president of Gallaudet University. We have an executive team, all whom report to me. When I arrived in 2016, they were all hearing. All of them were men except for one female. Now, fast forward to today. In fact, in 2019, we became a majority deaf-led institution, and in 2022, the very first time on our 158-year history that we didn't need to have an interpreter to conduct our executive team meetings. And we are the only place in the world that is run by people with disabilities, by deaf people who use sign language, managing a budget of over $200 million. We just went through our accreditation process. They called us the unicorn in higher education in America because we had no recommended actions, corrective actions, or needs for improvement based on our accrediting agency, and again, run by individuals who are deaf and signing. So if you're looking for evidence as to what can happen, we're not that far away, so please do come and visit. Come and visit and experience us for yourselves. I've spent quite some time here thinking about what we call the secret sauce that makes Gallaudet possible. What's led to our success? And I have 3 thoughts that I'd like to share with you. One, I'll focus on primarily in my remarks today. First is the importance of public investment in people with disabilities. In particular here, I'm speaking to individuals who are deaf and use sign language. Second thing that's essential is creating and cultivating a sense of belonging around everything that we do. And finally, advocating and fighting for equity. Again, equity in everything that we do, including language equity. So I've only been given 10 minutes today. I know I could take an entire hour with you. I will not. However, I did want to focus on the most essential thing, given that I'm here before the Austrian Parliament. Today, I want to focus on the importance of public support, which is essential for language equality in order for a language to thrive. Austria is an amazing country with a rich, diverse history around people and languages. In fact, you are leaders in adopting the civil rights, human rights. Years ago, in fact, you are also one Austrian Sign Language was recognized, OGS, as an official sign language, an independent language within your constitution in 2005. And with that, you signed the UN CRPD in 2007. Your leadership has been nothing short of remarkable in this area, in this part of the world. And what's fascinating, given your history, you are also one of the early adopters of sign language-based education. Right here, starting in 1779. When the Emperor Joseph II went to Paris, he went to see the National Institute for Deaf Children there and brought back with him sign language education here to Austria in 1779. I don't know if you realize that Thomas Gallaudet, the father of the founder of Gallaudet University, also went to Paris 100 years later. Well, it was more like 40 years later. And here in Austria, you were the ones to found the 3rd publicly supported or funded bilingual education environment for deaf children. You followed by a school that was founded in Paris and in Germany, then the one here. And daughter institutions of Viennese Institute, which is founded all over Austro-Hungarian, including schools in Milan. So it was in 1815 that Thomas Gallaudet came to Paris to do the exact same thing that happened here. He brought sign language to the United States after that visit. The first school for the deaf was founded in 1817 in America, and over the next 100 years, we founded 35 schools for the deaf. And by 1864, Thomas Gallaudet's son, Edward Minor Gallaudet, went on to found Gallaudet University. I share this history to better understand what happened here in Austria. We look to bilingual education efforts and the diminishing recognition of sign language as a pathway for learning, as a language deserving of equity to spoken language in this country and other countries in the world. So what happened here in Austria has happened elsewhere in the world. There was a famous congress that took place in 1880, the Milan Congress, a gathering of educators of the deaf. And in 1880, they made a declaration banning the use of sign language in the classroom for deaf children. That declaration began to take over the educational philosophies in the world. And then in Austria, you were as well impacted by eugenics and World War II. These movements led to the diminishment and the recognition of sign language rights for deaf people. What I'm so pleased to see now is that Austria did not give up. I'm here to ask that you stand again and move forward even more than you have in the last 2 years. You have begun to do work with the passing of laws that encourage the establishment of sign language-based learning and education in the early years of a deaf child's life. I encourage you to further invest even more aggressively in the years to come, because this is the right move to make. We at Gallaudet University and others here stand by to support you and your growth, your regrowth, and reinstituting sign language-based learning and education here in Austria. Secondly, one of the things that's so important, as you've already begun here, I encourage you to continue, is the use of sign language, not just being limited to deaf children, but being made available to all children. Because we know neurological growth happens when you're exposed to sign language. The human brain does not privilege in any way sign language or spoken language over the other. Spoken language is not privileged over sign language. It's seen in neurological terms as being equal. So we are here at Gallaudet to support you and your efforts in advancing the rights of deaf people in your country, to get their advanced degrees at Gallaudet University, and to improve upon your workforce here in Austria. And finally, I want to encourage you as members of Parliament to look to your policies, to see where you can develop more academic areas within universities, focusing on 2 primary things: deaf studies and Austrian Sign Language. What you haven't done yet is to establish a study of Austrian Sign Language and the corpus of Austrian Sign Language, to build a language documentation system that would then further advance bilingual education here in Austria. I know I'm out of time, and I've taken longer than I should have, but I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I encourage you to continue the work you're doing to advance the rights of sign language, users of sign language here in Austrians' life, and also particularly in the area of education. We in America are here to support you and your people with disabilities, individuals who are deaf, to win the race of life. And if there's anything that we can do to support that, do let us know.
Thank you, Roberta, for your inputs and showing us the importance of making it possible for everyone to have the way free to have education, and the example that Gallaudet University has given us today. Thank you very much. Wir sehen also, dass hier ein exzellentes Beispiel.
So this was an excellent example of how to include everyone in education and how to make life more inclusive overall. And of course, when it comes to Austrian Sign Language, there's much to do. We gladly accept your advice to make sure that everyone who uses Austrian Sign Language has a chance to do so everywhere. What's very fascinating to me is I've been told that you can also use it if you just have one arm, so it's a very inclusive language, and it's very individualized in a way, because the name you're given is a very individualized thing. So my name in Austrian Sign Language is unique indeed. And with this, let's move on to the innovations that can be used to make education more inclusive for everyone. Let me first of all welcome Michael Fembeck, the CEO of Zero Project. I would like to talk with you briefly about this project, and thank you first of all for all the work you're doing. You're probably quite relaxed now that everything has been prepared for tomorrow's conference. How do you get to present these innovations? What's the process? Thank you. Well, Martin Essl described the path from the nominations to all the way to the 77 projects that we will present at Vienna's UN premises in the next few days. We always have the Zero Project report that presents these innovations by means of fact sheets. Out of these 77 innovations that are our basis, when I say our, that's Karin Branis, Michael Essl, and myself. And what we're doing is something like a manual parshipping process. We try to select those innovations that also fit the Austrian context and can be implemented in Austria. That's about 12 to 15 that we pre-select before we contact members of parliament here in Austria and ask them to select one each and promote them. And that's what they do. They then get in contact with the awardees, and that's how we end up with the 5 we're going to present today. What to expect from the conference in the next few days? Well, we have more than 100 events, more than 200 presenters. It's difficult to present a few highlights here. Maybe I can just name a few. We have one group that we call Young Voices at the ZeroCon. That's more than 10 young people with disabilities from various countries that are actively included as presenters, as debate leaders. We have inventions from many countries. We have partnerships in Latin America, and India, and Singapore. They send their delegations over, so we are linked across the world with many partners. We have many technologies that are presented. There are innovation pitches. So it's a very varied and widespread program. That's very good to hear. Thank you again for your work and the work of your team. We're looking forward to the conference, but let's now move on to the innovations presented here today. Let's start right away with a project from Austria, and I would like to ask Fiona Fiedler to come up and present the project briefly with me. We're going to watch a video first, but let's start first with Fiona Fiedler. Welcome to all of you. It's my pleasure today to present a project from Austria that is about inclusive education. When I started as an MP 4.5 years ago, many people used to tell me inclusive education is not going to work, and I'm all the more delighted to show you today that we have proof that it does work. But what is inclusive education? It doesn't just mean getting children with and without disabilities together to learn. It's growing together. It's growing aware of diversity in our society, of recognizing that people are different in many manners and that everyone is just perfect the way they are. And learning this in a school context, maybe starting even with nursery school, is something that is an experience for life. And what I find so fascinating about inclusive education is that for all the problems and barriers that people with disabilities have, this is something we can eliminate in a complete and inclusive education system. Because as a person with disabilities, I can think of many things that need to be removed, and these are barriers in our heads and in our environments that we can tear down, and that's the goal of inclusive education. And the innovation that I selected manages to do that in an extraordinary way, and that's why I selected it, and I'm looking forward to the presentation now.
Vielen, vielen Dank. Dann würde ich sagen, schauen wir uns auch.
Many thanks. Then let's take a quick look at the video presentation, and then Martina Mikulic is going to present it.
Schulzentrum Ungargasse is a technical high school located in Vienna. The school prioritizes the admission of students with physical and sensory disabilities and provides them with the necessary support to participate in the lessons such as free assistive devices and support teachers.
Das Schulzentrum Ungargasse, Martina.
Let me now ask Martina Mikulic, the headmistress of the Ungargasse school. Honorable President, Mr. Essl, ladies and gentlemen, when a pupil aged 14 with a disability decides to go on to secondary education or vocational school, this is very often a problematic choice for them, in that not all schools are equally well prepared for integration, and many higher secondary schools use a grading system when it comes to accepting students. So for many young students with disabilities, this is a barrier they cannot surmount. But this is not the case in our school at Ungargasse. We give them a chance because what we live is the model of reverse integration. This means that we prioritize pupils or young students with disabilities, and only then the remaining spaces are filled with young people without disabilities. What does this mean when they start to study at our school and want to reach their learning goal? Because the curriculum is the same for all of them, the final certificate is the same for all. What they need is technical support on the one hand, and we offer that by being prepared ourselves. We have assistive technology, special screens, special tables that can be varied in height and so on. And then we also try to give them the personal support they need. We have support teachers, we have therapists, logopedic teachers, we have health care support and so on, nurses. The important or the main goal is, of course, to reach the learning targets. Teaching is mainly done in smaller groups, and individual support is fundamental, meaning individual support for young people with a disability. All of this combined means that this involves a lot of work, a lot of organizational tasks and commitment, but it pays off, because by teaching young people with and without disabilities together, by allowing them to have various experiences together, integrated language teaching weeks, and many more things. This means that there's a particular mindset that develops in all of them, and this is decisive for the rest of their lives. And it also, and that's a beautiful thing to see, it also has an impact on our society. So, in a nutshell, what we are trying to achieve with our model of integration, of reverse integration, is to reduce barrier for young people with disabilities, but also for people without disabilities, to reduce those barriers in their heads, with the ultimate goal of having no barriers, zero barriers. Thank you very much.
Herzlichen Dank, Frau Direktorin Mikulic.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mikowicz. We have our experts sitting here on the government bench. They have some questions for you. Let me start by inviting Mr. Wiedel, President of the Austrian Disability Council, to ask the first question and talk to us for a few moments. Thank you very much, President of the National Council, Mr. Essl, ladies and gentlemen. As President of the Austrian Disability Council, it is of particular importance to me to point out how important it is to actively include people with disability in public debate. I would very much like to thank you for holding the kickoff event of the Zero Project Conference in the most important building of our democracy for the 5th time here at the Austrian Parliament. This unfolds an enormous symbolic force and helps us raising the awareness of the fundamental human right to inclusion. We are proud to welcome the world community here in Vienna to talk about inclusion. May there be many valuable impulses that will grow out of this conference. We all know that much more remains to be done, especially in the area of education and accessibility. Therefore, I would like to thank all of you, and in particular the Essl Foundation, for organizing this event here at the Austrian Parliament and at the Vienna UN premises. Now, let me ask my question to you. What measures did you take at the Ungargasse school in order to achieve the right balance between formal education, social learning, and support geared in particular to people with disabilities? And a follow-up question, do you have any preventive measures that you take in order to avoid mobbing? I would like to start with the last part of your question. One of our fundamental principles is that we look at what happens. We're not looking away, and we take care of each other. We try to make sure that bullying doesn't even happen, doesn't even start. And by this very model of inclusion, we managed to create a special type of social competence that is something that becomes normal, but it's something that needs to be learned. One of the things we try to achieve, especially in the beginning, is that pupils run a wheelchair parkour, even those who do not use a wheelchair, or that they learn what it's like to live as someone who has reduced sight, or someone who has just one arm. And this is a very important lever. And as far as teaching is concerned, everyone receives the same certificate, school leaving certificate, as I said, because we have the same curriculum for everyone. And so this is a common goal that everyone tries to achieve, and we manage in achieving this goal very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Wiedel and Ms. Mikowitz. Let me ask Karin Stöckler, Vice President of ÖZIF Österreich, to ask a second question. You have come all the way from Vorarlberg, the westernmost part of Austria. When doing some research, I learned that your school is offering a wealth of interesting options, and this reminded me of my own wonderful time at school in which I was fully integrated and accepted. The many contributions I found on the internet showed that the school really implements mutual respect and successes for all. What are the prerequisites that we need to implement the same schooling form in other places in Austria? What are the main challenges when it comes to implement such an inclusive form of schooling? Well, if you want to implement this model in other regions in Austria, one thing is clear: it's not going to work if it's something that is going to be ordered from top down. If the headmaster says, this is what we're going to implement now, you have to have the right mindset. People have to be open and willing to do this. That's the first and the most important step. And then, of course, you also need the relevant resources. You need additional staff. That costs a lot of money. At Ungargasse, we are lucky enough to have the, say, Mercedes model of education. Of course, not everyone needs to drive a Mercedes, but you need the relevant resources to be able to say, oh, we're not even going to start with it, it's going to cost us too much. It has to be possible to finance it, and then it can be done. Thank you very much, Ms. Mikowicz, for these explanations. Please take a seat again. Thank you also to Fiona Fiedler, who is going to come back to tell us what are the next steps going to be for this project. Well, we agreed that following this event, we're going to hold a roundtable debate to talk about some of the questions that were asked a few minutes ago. What does it take to implement this in other places in Austria? And I'm very much looking forward to an interesting exchange and debate. We will have many participants, and it's going to be a very positive exchange. I'm sure that will lead to a positive and inclusive end. Thank you very much. We are looking forward to seeing this model spread across Austria and maybe internationally. I was very pleased to hear your initiative against bullying. Something I learned during my school years was that if you just have one shoulder to carry your school bag on, this will make your shoulders stronger. That's good for sports as well, in my case. But let's continue now, and we'll travel to Portugal. The representatives of the next project unfortunately could not make it to get here for the kickoff event, although they tried very much. But we do have a short video presentation, and Karin Pranis-Kastner will then present the project in detail. She's very experienced in this area.
Cooperative for Inclusion has developed a model where case managers coordinate the early childhood interventions of 3 ministries: of education, of health, and of labor and social services. In 2021, 154 case managers reached almost 80,000 people, including children and their families.
Liebe Karin Pranias.
Dear Karin Pranis-Kastner, please join me here. You have a lot of experience in your own professional life with regard to early childhood intervention. You have the floor. Thank you, Andreas. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite you to a small experiment. It might be unexpected for some of you, but just imagine. You hear that your child has a disability. So what will you think? What happens in your head? What does my child have? Where will I get information? Where will I get support? Who will support me? What is the future going to look like? Are we going to be able to do all that? Now, these, ladies and gentlemen, are questions you may be asking yourselves now, but these are questions all families ask themselves when they hear that their child has a disability. And this is where the project from Portugal, a very successful project, kicks in. Andreas, we do have another video, and I would like to invite you all to watch that video with me, and I will then complement it with some of my own experience.
Mr. President of the Parliament, dear ambassadors, members of Parliament, international guests, Austrian friends, and dear all, I cannot stress enough the honor of this kind invitation and the interest of our early childhood intervention system, ECI. Unfortunately, I cannot be here with you since I'm currently traveling to Vienna and hope I will arrive shortly and still can interact with you. My name is Miguel. I'm the current president of CSED, a not-for-profit NGO that supports persons with disabilities in all ages, in all areas of life. As you all know, Portugal is not a rich country. By the time when Portugal signed the UN Convention, it decided to reform inclusive education and childhood intervention under a terrible economic crisis. It was under severe restrictions that we started a pilot project in 2009, where a team was created by gathering all the resources from all 3 different ministries: education, health, and labor and social services. 15 professionals with experience on early childhood intervention formed a transdisciplinary team, a team where professionals shared their expertise and provided cross-training between its members. Professionals with the role of the case manager for the family represents all 3 ministries. For the families, this represents a one-stop shop solution with a single intervention plan shared between all stakeholders with well-defined roles. The families are the holders of the intervention plan. The ECI professional case manager assures that every professional in the process knows the objectives of the plan and their role to achieve the family priorities for their own child. After 1 year, this team of 15 professionals were providing support to 400 children and their families, instead of the previous 160 children they provided support to. After 15 years, mainland Portugal has now 154 local teams supporting 80,000 persons and more than 25,000 children with disabilities. Now, for families changing their residency across the country, it is assured that the local ECI team continues the work of the previous team, giving continuity to the intervention plan. The system does not aim to destroy current services, but rather to make all stakeholders work together and efficiently towards the objective families defined as their priorities to better prepare their children to enter formal schooling in the best way possible. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share our experience in the field, and I hope I see you all in a few hours when I finally arrive in Vienna, and wish you a prolific work. Thank you.
Danke, Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel. He's on his way. And you may have the chance to meet him later on. Over to you. Thank you. It's a fantastic project. Let's travel back to Austria. I am a mother of a daughter with disabilities, but I also have a long-standing experience in counseling parents, so I do know the needs of families with disabilities. I've known them for decades. Of course, every child is a source of big pleasure and fun, but families with children with disabilities do have challenges as well. What are their needs in particular? Now, first of all, when it comes to the diagnosis, at this point in time, families would like to have more information, an increased amount of counseling, and without having to wait for it for too long. This is about getting information about the type of disability, but also information about what kinds of support there are. In addition, there's a very large need for supporting families in taking off some of the weight of their shoulders and in helping them reorganize their family life. Families want to have counseling on a level playing field. Families are the experts on their own child. That is something that the Portuguese project also says. And this is where peer counseling is very important. In counseling, we often have practical solutions for day-to-day problems that we need. It's about mobilizing resources, about networks that may exist, but also the possibility to exchange experiences with parents who are in the same situation. The financial and other worries that these families have lead to increased pressure, to a lack of spontaneity, but also to isolation. So in summary, what we can say is that parents of people with disabilities see three needs as particularly important to come to terms with their day-to-day problems. First of all, time. Secondly, financial support. And thirdly, the knowledge or gaining knowledge about opportunities for treatment, for early childhood intervention, and inclusive education. For decades, we have seen the same needs, the same problems for parents. And even though little has changed on that front, there are few, if any, approaches to support families in their own environment. Challenges that parents of children with disabilities face cannot remain their individual problems. It's a topic for society as a whole that we have to take care of. We have to create the framework conditions so as to allow for a natural interaction. Let's not wait any longer. Let's not accept any longer that families have to find their way through a jungle of support options. Let's help them find the right support for them. Thank you very much, Karin. This is what we need. Let's copy what works in the Portuguese model, and let's try to achieve this. We have two questions again. First of all, from Mr. Weinig. In education, we have many changes from nursery to primary school, or when someone changes from one school to another or moves on to work life. And this is where support is needed. And I think what the Portuguese project shows is that we can build bridges. They are builders of bridges. So my question is, what training do these people receive? First of all, when it comes to interacting with the children with disabilities, but also with regard to interacting with the various institutions and organizations, with including and embracing their families. And as regards the Austrian situation in particular, the question is, what would this bridge need to look like so that this can be successful? Thank you for the question. Let me first of all touch upon the Portuguese project. When this pilot project was founded, they already had experts in early childhood intervention. New members who joined the team were then integrated in the team and were able to learn and benefit from the experiences made by the founders. So they were trained by the initial team members. So it's a key to building interdisciplinary teams, that everyone is motivated. We also know that from the Ungargasse school. So that was seen as one of the key drivers. So who wanted to do this had a chance to be integrated well and also participated in further training options. It's a multidisciplinary team. Everyone comes from a different profession, and so this can be channeled in a very successful way. If a family has the need for a particular type of support and the case manager does not have that part of expertise, then another expert will come in. Another thing that I also learned from this project is that it's never about diagnosing something. It's always about the needs, the wishes of the families. And that's how then the plan is developed. But it's not the diagnosis that is prioritized. A diagnosis may be needed, but it's not the priority. So it's really the parents who decide what happens, how it happens, where it is supposed to happen. And then you ask me, how could this be implemented in Austria? This is a very interesting question. As a matter of fact, we do have ECI institutions in some of our regions, and early childhood teaching, but also the medical side is something that is under the competence of the Länder, the federal provinces. We're a federal system. So we do have some of the Länder who are very advanced in this area, Vienna and Upper Austria in particular. We do have other federal provinces that also have some early childhood intervention systems, but not to the extent as the other two. So families have to deal with many things, also with regard to family, or reorganizing their family life in general. What does it mean if someone really comes and supports me in my family? That means that we can provide much more targeted support. One thing that is not going well in Austria is that you have horrendous waiting times for access to ECI, but also for getting a diagnosis or treatment for small children. And that is something we definitely need to change. So everything that we miss in early childhood is something that you can hardly make up later in life. So no time to lose here. We need to adjust our system. Thank you, Franz Josef. Second question from Bernadette Feuerstein of Selbstbestimmt Leben Österreich. Thank you. Well, in Austria, we've heard about plans to set up so-called one-stop shops to help with complicated administrative procedures. And it's quite remarkable that there's this support and cooperation with the ministries in Portugal. Now, with regard to Austria, the question I have is whether the case managers include people with disabilities who can contribute their own experience. And looking at peer counseling, whether they can support parents and children alike, and if so, what is their margin of maneuver? Very often there are challenges with financing or with support options that are available in general. And do case managers have some margin to take decisions together with the parents and children, or are they very limited in what they are allowed to do by the financing organizations or the ministries? Thank you, Bernadette. I tried to get some information. There is indeed no peer counseling. I do think it's very important when it comes to parent education. They do have experts that are trained at universities, doctors, nurses, teachers, social workers, and so on. This may be one of the weaknesses of the project. And as we heard, Miguel is going to be here in Austria soon and will be available after this event for an exchange. And this is something we really want to look into, and would like to also inform him about that this is really necessary. When it comes to the case managers, they are not authorized to grant financial support. It's really about combining or making the link between available resources and the families and activating all resources and options that are available. But the case manager cannot decide about the amount of resources to be made available to a family. What I can say is, however, that the parents themselves own the plan, the development plan for their child, and the experts are just accompanying the process. And as I said at the outset, parents are the expert of their own child. That's really the focus of the counseling work and of the work they do with the parents. Thank you very much, Bernadette, for your question, and thank you, Karin, for your contribution. We hope that much more can be done. Thank you again to Franz Josef and Bernadette, and we hope that Miguel will be joining us soon. He will be available for questions, as we said. Let me now ask Kira Grünberg to present another project from Austria, from Johannes Kepler University in Linz. It's about a program for medical students.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich bin sehr stolz, dass Sie heute mein Projekt aus Österreich vorstellen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present a project from Austria. We do not just have pilot projects from all over the world that we can copy, but also the other way around. I think many people with disabilities have been seeing a doctor, and then the doctor maybe didn't really know how to deal with us, people with disabilities. This often starts with the fact that as a patient patient do not approach directly, but that the doctors speak with the person accompanying us, not including us. Another problem may be that the doctor may think that they know more about our own disability than we ourselves, and so they're again looking down on us from a higher position. And then communication is also an issue. As a person with a disability, you want to have a personal communication with the doctor, but this sometimes is a problem when it comes to communication means available. If I am deaf, then the doctor has to have the possibility to talk to me. If I have a learning disability, the doctor should be able to use simple language in order to communicate with me, in order to solve this problem. And in order to keep us from having to overcome these barriers in the future, I selected Professor Fellinger's project from Linz University.
Herr Professor.
Thank you, Kira Grünberg. We'll watch a short video and then I'll ask you to come join me here. Let's start with the video.
The Johannes Kepler University, based in Linz, Austria, has designed a curriculum of developmental medicine to train future doctors in the needs and rights of persons with disabilities. This approach ensures that doctors have the skill set to provide adequate medical support to persons with disabilities.
Jetzt freuen wir uns aber auf Professor Johannes Fellinger.
I'm delighted to introduce Johannes Fellinger, professor at the Johannes Kepler University, Linz. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this wonderful introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to meet here on a central topic, allowing people to organize their own lives. And this is particularly important when it comes to health. Being responsible for health oneself is something that is difficult, and Ms. Grünberg introduced the topic in an excellent manner. Let me just start maybe by showing you a few pictures to explain what I mean when I talk about inclusive medicine. It's making health possible for everyone in an equal way. The first picture is quite obvious. Someone is sitting in a wheelchair, wants to go through a door. The door needs to be made barrier-free. Now, freedom from barriers, accessibility is something we have all heard about. It's not been fully implemented. And especially, we hardly ever think about a second aspect about inclusion, unconditional support also when it comes to specialized training. Accessibility for all means that everyone can do everything. For more than 30 years, I've been working as a doctor, and so I know how many things you need to know. If at the hospital where I work, we meet people with various disabilities, with various impairments, with symptoms, with illnesses. I know how many things I need to know and learn. And this is only possible when we are all on a level playing field and when we really talk to each other. And a third aspect for inclusive medicine is participation. Those affected are the experts. We have members of staff who are also affected, who have disabilities, and we need to be ready to learn. As doctors, we often think we know things, but if we're honest, we know very few things. What we've learned from our patients. Everything else can be looked up quickly. And so it's very important to include peer work. And one image I always like to show also to my student is this image. We have a department on inclusive medicine. And what is really important is the aim. How do I reach my aim? When I talk about a health reform, everyone, students and everyone else, constantly has to refocus on one question that we ask our patient: what do you want? We're not used to asking this question anymore. What do you want? It's a question you have to ask every patient, and in particular a patient who seems to be so different from what I'm usually dealing with, or from whom I'm usually dealing with. And it does happen that doctors want to treat patients with disabilities for their disability when they come to see the doctor for something completely different. And this is something we also have to start talking about in medical training. And it's not really special. Our university founded a new medical faculty, and I was pleased to be able to contribute to the curriculum. Of course, we do have a special content focusing just on inclusive medicine, but it's really included across the curriculum. It's something we have to take up with young students, and I do see that they're very much interested in this topic. It's just not a natural thing yet. So in training for young people, doctors, nurses, and so on, inclusion is a really fundamental aspect. Thank you, Professor. Please stay with me. We do have a few questions for you, of course. Inclusive medicine as a cross-cutting matter, that's something I find really interesting. Julia Moser from Light for the World has a question for you. Yes, thank you. Light for the World is mainly active in Africa and also in the area of inclusion for the blind, with including for access to education and to medical studies. And this is why I'm particularly pleased to hear you present this project according to the current WHO report on health justice for people with disabilities. Unfortunately, the situation is unchanged. People with disabilities on average are less healthy than they need to be, and this, of course, has to do with the many problems they face. And you mentioned it. At the end of the day, people with disabilities have to be taken serious as patients, not as a person with a disability who comes to see a doctor, but as a person who comes to see a doctor for a health problem. Now, you do have this inclusive curriculum in Linz at your university. I'm afraid most people with a disability who are here today have made the same experience, that they weren't treated as a patient in the first place. I'm very glad to hear that you are addressing this problem. My question is, how can your project contribute to raising awareness in all doctors in Austria to allow for a human rights-based approach? Thank you. This is a very important thing you mention. Many people are simply not aware of this. And this is something that we can help with. It should be included in the regular curriculum and not just be part of one single lecture. So it's the question that we have to ask every single patient again and again: what do you want? And not just think that we already know what they want. This is something that we can really include in many curricula without much of a hassle. That's what we really wish for. Thank you, Professor. Katharina Pranjes of WAC Assistenzgenossenschaft has another question. Thank you. Thank you for being able to ask a question for people with disabilities. We often face all types of problems as people with disabilities. And my question in particular is about the content of your curriculum. Is this just purely medical content in the sense of teaching medical qualifications? Or do you also include other aspects? For example, how to deal with people with disabilities. And then I have a second question I would like to ask. Whom else do you include in this teaching program? May I ask, did I understand you right? Is this mainly about teaching medical content, or do we also include human rights aspects? Do we also include people with disabilities? And do we also teach about the CRPD? Yes, that was the question. Now let me tell you an interesting story. Our university was brand new rooms, everything. We had a lecture about ethics, about people with disabilities in the medical system. I invited a speaker. She was a wheelchair user. I didn't know the premises, so I picked her up from her home. We came to the foyer of the building. The lecture room was on the first floor. There was no elevator, so I thought, that's how things go. This is an opportunity. So I walked up to the first floor and I told my student, either you will carry our speaker up to the first floor or everyone will come downstairs. And the decision was made quickly. Everyone would be coming down. And I said, that's right. You always have to be willing to approach people because it's not going to work any other way. And that was one of the most important lessons for us. Something had to be done that had not been planned. Of course, nowadays everything, or many things have improved. Everything is accessible. We have the possibility to record videos because not everyone can be here all the time. But we do have this practical interrelation with people with disabilities whom we meet. We have also the possibility for people who have perfect hearing to experience what it feels like not to hear. And what's important is also to have the right attitude to inform our students that every doctor has the right and the obligation to make accessibility possible and available, also for themselves. Thank you very much. Thank you also, Katharina Pranius, for your question. Very often when you start a journey, you come across things that you did not expect. But when you come across them the second, third, or fourth time, you will no longer have to think about how to find a meeting room that is really accessible to all. So this is really possible in Austria, and we have to make it possible in all areas, including in education, so that everyone knows how to communicate also with people with disabilities on a level playing field. Let's move on to the next innovation, not Austria this time, but Australia. But before I forget, Kira Grünberg, what is the next step going to be in this project? I almost forgot about this.
Ja, wie soll's weitergehen?
Yes, what are the next steps? In her question, Ms. Moser mentioned part of our objective, which is to convince medical universities everywhere in Austria that medical students need to learn more about people with disabilities and their rights early on in their studies. A fellow MP from Graz, from Styria, is actually a doctor, and that's a very good coincidence. And I am from the Tyrol region myself, where we also have a large medical university. So we are trying to bring everyone on board so as to promote inclusion more and more as we go along. Thank you, Kira Grünberg. We do hope to see many achievements in the future, but let's travel on to Australia. It's a very important topic. It's a tactile, integrative play kit for children. I have a little son who's 11 months old, and I can see myself how important it is for kids to experience everything, to come to learn everything. And whenever I said, "Well done, Jan," I tried to clap on my thigh because I don't have two hands. And whenever he's trying to clap now, he's imitating his dad. He's clapping one hand on his thigh. So children really take up what they see also in a playful way. So this is a very interesting project. Sibylle, please introduce the project. Thank you. It's fantastic to be here. You've basically said it all. There's not much more left for me to say. The project we're about to see is a project that has traveled very far from Australia, to be precise. It's a paradox in a way. It wouldn't be necessary to go that far. It's a global thing that we have all over humankind. It's the way how children interact from their earliest age, in nursery, in preschool, during elementary school. This is where playing is the main means of communication for children, to start a relationship, to feel things, to learn things. And playing is something that just happens naturally. You don't really have to do much to start it, but you can support children playing with materials that really involve all their senses and put children with and without the disabilities on the same level. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing more now.
And I'm very excited to see your presentation. Thank you. Reach and match.
Vielen Dank, Sibylle Hamann. Wir schauen uns schnell noch ein Video an, and then Mandy, we will look at you here. Also jetzt noch kurz Video ab.
Reach and Match, an Australian-based social enterprise, offers an inclusive, play-based learning program for all children. Their distinctive learning kit comprises sensory mats and Braille print alphabet tiles with sound features. In 2023, it has been used by 35,000 children in 8 countries.
Jetzt ist es aber an der Zeit für Mandy Lau.
Mandy Lau, founder and director of Meech and Match. Let me welcome you.
Thank you for being here. We look forward to your presentation about Reach and Match. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mandy, founder of Reach and Match based in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm a young Asian woman, short hair with glasses, and wearing a dark blue dress and a dark brown jacket. And today I'm really honored to have this opportunity, and thank you so much, and I'm really excited to share our inclusive education solution with you. In education sector, children with disabilities often face social exclusion and fail to meet developmental milestones. For example, in Australia, despite 89% of these children attend mainstream schools, 70% experience isolated and left out. But this is not just the Australian issue, it's a global challenge. With my background in product design and engineering, and I'm really passionate about inclusion and education, and I was wondering, what does true inclusion look like? And inclusion is such a complex topic, even for adults. And how do we teach to children? And that's why in 2010, I started my research and developed Reach and Match. So Reach and Match is designed to translating inclusion into fun, interactive play, in break down barriers, making inclusion tangible and enjoyable for all children. So it's a double-sized sensory playmat with the Braille features. So this is some part of the tile here, and you can see the Braille. And it has a Braille feature. Children with and without vision impairment or with disabilities can play together. So when you see the mat on the one side, children can learn about matching colors, shapes, and sound. And you flip over, you can create a path. Children can learn about motor skills, direction, and spatial concepts. The program has 40 activities that focus on physical, cognitive, language, and social skills that align with the global early learning year frameworks, so helping teachers easily to adapt into their school curriculum. And we also provide training materials to support teachers with the inclusive teaching techniques. The magic of Meech and Match is that it's inclusive and multisensory. It's a shared platform that welcomes all children to engage and learn collaboratively. And it's also evidence-based, backed by rigorous research, easily adapt into diverse cultural contexts. Most importantly, our program supports school readiness and social well-being for all children. And since 2014, we have impacted over 35 children in hundreds of schools across 8 countries and received numerous awards in education and inclusion. We have formed successful partnerships with organizations such as UNICEF and World Vision, so we can bring this to developing countries and also emergencies. Our evaluations found that children with disabilities are participating more in class, and children with and without disabilities are not just interacting, but learning from each other. And teachers are feeling a sense of empowerment. To sum up, this is not just an educational tool, but it's a catalyst for true inclusive education. When we rethink the boundaries of education, we can see what we can achieve. Inclusion doesn't need to be so complicated. It can be fun, engaging, and authentic for everyone. Thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to future collaboration with you on this mission. Thanks.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm pretty sure my son will love Reach and Match. We got some questions for you. The first one comes from Elmar Fürst. He's from the Association for Support for People with a Vision Impairment, and he will tell you the first question. He's on your right.
Hello, Manny. It's a pleasure having you here and to learn about Match and Reach, a very interesting game. You pointed out that one of the most important features of the game is inclusiveness, so that pupils or people, children with and without disabilities can play collaboratively together. I was just wondering how and how well does this work? Maybe you can describe a little bit how this is working and how they can play together.
Thank you so much for your questions. So currently the program is using in mainstream schools, where children with disabilities in the mainstream schools around 70 to 21% across different countries. But we also use in special schools where children with diverse needs and different disabilities to learn together. And I guess your question is how children with and without disabilities, they can learn and interact, and how children without disability to play together. So that's a great question, because that's why we find the training is very important. Because through the training that we are teaching some adaptation and modifications of the games to children with different needs. And because the program is aligned with the learning framework, that means all children will want to develop those developmental milestones. And that's where teachers found that would be useful to put in the curriculum. Because we found that lots of resources, they are useful, but if that's not aligned with the curriculum or their daily schedule, and it's really difficult to implement. So we really put that into thoughts when we collaborate with educators in the school. So that's how we designed that program. Teachers can see how to use for children without special needs, but how to also modify and games with children with special needs. For example, lots of children, they are not blind, but when they see the braille, they're asking questions about what are these dots? They look so funny. And we teach them that's braille, and they ask us, oh, what is braille and why we need to learn braille? And then we teach them, children, they are blind, they cannot see, that's another way to communicate. And it just opened up all these questions they're asking about braille. And this is the way how children learn about inclusion and the differences among others. And we also found, that's one example, a child is blind and a child is not blind, they're playing listening games. So the different shapes have different sounds, and kids, they can play together, sorting sounds. And the children, they are blind, they are very sensitive. So they're really good at playing the games and teach others. You don't just rely on our vision, but hearing is really important as well. So this is how we teach them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mandy. Very interesting to see. Another question is from Christine Steger. She is the state attorney for people with disability in Austria.
Hi, Mandy. Thank you for coming this far. You traveled, a lot to come here, and I'm really glad you did, because I'm really fond of your project. So thank you for the presentation of the Reach and Match training kit. In Austria too, there are too few accessible and inclusive learning materials that give children with and without disabilities a shared learning experience, as you described. So what can we learn? What can Austria learn from your experience and from your long-term experience? Because you started it in 2010 and 2014, so it's been a long time and a long period. So what can we learn from it? And my second question would be, how have you been able to achieve this broad distribution in various schools, and what good practice methods can you recommend for us? Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for your questions. I really appreciate. I found that this is really difficult. It's really challenging, to be honest. It's really hard because I have no business background and I'm a designer. I just really want to make this happen, and I want to solve the problem and test with the teachers and schools. And I guess because from my research, I see lots of tools. They are like equipment. So they are like wheelchairs or glasses or magnifying glasses or machines or braille. So it's tailored for children with special needs. So I really see there's a huge gap about what is inclusive. So that's something that joining all children, and we make fun for everyone so they will want to come instead we pushing them to be together. So the first thing I found is really important is inclusive. The mindset is what is welcoming everyone. Even my game is not perfect, but we spend lots of time to educators say, if a child is using wheelchair, how do we play this game? Because, for example, this game is a child doing a relay run to find the tiles to put into the mat. And then we found that, okay, how about that? We separate into a team. So children with and without disabilities, they form as a team. It's not like competition because it doesn't work in that way. So that's how we teach children form team and they learn and helping each other. So I think that is really important through my design process to learn about what is that mindset. And second, because the design itself is inclusive, that means it's not just for special needs children, and that's how it can roll out to mainstream schools. And another way is because this is really shareable. This is for the whole school, whole class. You can share with different classes. So it can really benefit lots of children. And we partner with organizations, and that is a really good way because that is where the most children in most need where they are. So, for example, partner with this organization really can impact children in those large communities, and they are invisible, not in the community to invite them. So I think that is the best way to reach more people through the strategic partnership and also the design thinking skills. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mandy Lau. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your innovation and all the best for your future. Thank you very much. Jetzt vergesse ich natürlich nicht.
Now this time I'm not going to forget to ask Sibylle Hamann to come back for the closing remarks.
And particularly fascinating was that this material, that it really works under so different circumstances in so different countries like Papua New Guinea, for example, or Australia. Austria is unfortunately not yet part of those. Aber ich könnte mir vorstellen, wenn wir in inklusiven Settings
If we want to work in inclusive settings in Austria, in nursery schools, in schools, well, I did see that schools and nursery schools have been developing their own material, their own approaches. Teachers have been completing additional training courses. So I think it would be possible to use this.
Playing has to be fun, and playing can be fun. So there will be a round table after this. I think it will be in English language. Will there be a translation also?
We will make sure.
Yes, there will. So we will discuss possibilities of implementing and using these materials in Austria as well, and I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Vielen, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much to Australia. Let's stay in the field of technology, moving on to innovation project number 5, to be presented by Verena Nussbaum, a computer app that gives a voice to each child. Let's give a hand to Verena Nussbaum.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will continue where we left off, early childhood teaching. This is also a UNICEF project that I am able to present today. Thank you again for organizing this kickoff event, which always presents very interesting projects. The first years in life of a child are crucial when it comes to communicating, to learning how to engage with others. And this is why I selected the UNICEF project that allows for a very low threshold access to communication for children. And from our point of view, every child deserves the same chances in life. And this starts with education, which will determine the future path of life for everyone. And this UNICEF project provides a very low threshold access, irrespective of the family I'm born into, whether my parents are wealthy or not. This allows for communication and the same chances for all children, and that's why I am pleased to present this project. Thank you. We'll start with a short video, and then we'll hear more about the UNICEF project.
UNICEF's Giving Voice to Every Child supports young children with communication impairments. The project utilizes Seaboard, a free argumentative and alternative communication web application that integrates a symbols database with over 20,000 symbols. The program, launched in Bulgaria, Croatia, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Serbia, has benefited more than 3,000 children since 2019.
Und jetzt freuen wir uns auf Sarah.
I'm looking forward to Sarah Argaval, Innovation Manager of UNICEF. Welcome.
Respected parliamentarians, dignitaries, friends, colleagues, thank you so much for having us. On behalf of UNICEF, I'm really grateful to share with you an initiative that is very close to our heart. Early learning is very important. It is especially the ages 3 to 6 is when our communication and language skills are developed. Some children face difficulties, communication difficulties because of impairments or trauma. How can we ensure that every child has a voice? They are able to overcome these difficulties using AAC, augmentative and alternative communication technologies. And that is where this initiative, we believe, has a potential to support and create an enabling environment for children with communication difficulties. There are 4 key aspects of this initiative. One, of course, is the technology solution, and I'll talk about it in detail in a bit. But the other 3 are the enabling environment and ecosystem that makes any assistive technology implementation very important. One is to improve capacity of professionals, therapists, counselors, special educators, teachers. How do we build their capacity? And there is a lot of work that is done around it. Second is shift from the medical to social model of disability. We talked about it a bit in the earlier innovations as well, where we want the learning environment of the child to be enabled and looked into that aspect. And the last is nurturing partnerships, where bringing together government, ministries, NGOs, social sector, professionals, parents is very important. And that's how, with these 4 aspects coming together, this initiative has been presented. Just to give you a brief about the solution, it uses open source technology that makes it open and easily can be amended for different contexts. We have leveraged global symbols database of 20,000 symbols so that the symbols can be customized for each child. And for the languages, we are creating TTS, text-to-speech voices, for the language in which this doesn't exist, so that children are able to communicate with their family members in the language they speak at home. And that is where it becomes a truly enabler at their home environment as well as school environment. Since 2019, it has been implemented in 5 countries. Extensive communication packages have been developed. Everything is open source. Even the training packages are available in public domain. In some countries, we are seeing government has adopted and included this training as part of their professional capacity building of the professionals. So far, more than 1,000 professionals have been trained, who in turn are impacting and working together with parents and children. In terms of impact, we are seeing a high degree of achievement in terms of competency, self-esteem, and adaptability. That's what professionals and parents are feeling while working with the child. Thank you so much. I think it's a very humbling experience to be in presence of so many amazing, I would say, the innovators all around this room who are, if we come together, we can totally make a big difference. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. That's what we want to do to make a difference. We have 2 questions for you as well. Heidemarie Egger from the initiative Women with Disabilities.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Firstly, I would like to mention that the group of children with speaking impairments is very marginalized, as well as girls and young women with disabilities in the area of education. So what I'm most interested in is how does this app help in inclusive education where children with and without disabilities come together, and also in inclusive settings where children with and without disabilities interact with each other?
That's a very, very important question. And that is a key aspect of the training package that I mentioned, because a technology solution is an enabler, and technologies keep changing and evolving. It is how we bring together the professionals, the special educators, the parents on a same platform, and that's how I'll share with you the links of the training program, in which the idea is to empower those professionals in bringing together, create those inclusive classrooms where children with disabilities and without disabilities are able to work together, play together, and learn together. Thank you. I think that's a very important question. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidemarie. A second question will come from Tobias Buchner from the Monitoring Ausschuss.
Thank you so much for your fantastic presentation. Today I would like to tackle a topic that has been accompanying us for some time, and I think this topic will also guide us in the future and impact our life a lot. This topic, some people talk about the risks associated with it, some people talk about the opportunities, and today, in relation to your product, I would like to focus on the opportunities, and the topic is artificial intelligence. So I did some research preparing my question for today, and I had a look at the website of UNICEF and at the product website, and I saw that some artificial intelligence tools are integrated in Seaboard. This integration of AI helps to foster the communicative skills of children in a very individual way in learning environments. And one might say this artificial intelligence might help to fulfill one of the promises of inclusive education, which is to foster the abilities of each child in an individual way. So my question would be, which further future potentials do you see in the combination of artificial intelligence and AAC?
That's a very important question and a very difficult one to answer. Technology is changing the way we look at the world. Assistive technology with AI support holds a lot of promise. We have to take a cautious approach where we also don't compromise on the privacy concerns, but we gradually move towards leveraging those technologies to deliver a supporting environment. And that's where currently Seaboard, we are looking at using AI to build the symbols and pictures that are customized for each child. So I talked about the 20,000 symbols database that we use, but each child could have a symbol database that is really unique for them and communicates how they feel. We are looking at text-to-speech that I mentioned with AI support. Its integration can really help in those nuances and better language support when integrated into the solutions. But this is just the beginning. As the technology evolves, we have to learn, we have to leverage it in a cautious manner so that we can provide maximum support to every child. But thank you for asking that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tobias. Thank you very much, Sarab Agarwal, and all the best for your project. Thank you very much. Applause to you. Und natürlich auch hier zum
And in this case, too, we want to know about the next steps. Verena Nussbaum, over to you. Well, I think it's been said very clearly that we need assistive devices and AI in our lives. This is right and it is important, but On the other hand, technology alone is not going to be the solution for everything. What's going to be important for the future, and we heard it also from the Medical University in Linz, this is something that also needs to be integrated in teacher training and in the curricula, so that they learn about inclusion. How do I deal with people with disabilities? But it's important that people with disabilities are also enabled to train for these professions and carry out these professions. And this is something where Austria needs to arrive in the 21st century. Thank you. Thank you very much to everyone for your efforts, for all the steps that need to be taken. These were the 5 innovations that we wanted to present today. Roberta Cordano, I heard, wants to comment on the second project. We will give her the floor in a minute, and then we'll come to the closing part of this day. Ms. Cordano.
Andres, I wanted to thank you for the wonderful job you've done moderating, and to the panelists, your questions have been extraordinary and began a wonderful conversation. I had a couple of things to add to the great presentations we heard this morning. First is a lesson of equity that I'm really beginning to recognize through our presentations today. The questions and the presentations really speak to the notion of equity and what that can look like. Can you imagine what it would be like having a fence as you're looking over a field where a game is being played? Someone such as me, I'm short, I'm 5'1", I would not be able to see over the fence, and I would not be able to see the game that's happening on the opposite side of the fence. Someone using a wheelchair also would find themselves in the same situation. If you're 6 feet tall, you could easily look over that fence and watch the game. When we speak about equity, it represents this notion that we may put different boxes that people can stand on to allow their height to be increased so that they can stand and see above the fence. Someone in a wheelchair may use an elevator or a lift to get themselves above the fence line to be able to see over. Someone short, such as myself, might stand on a box. So equity provides an equalizing experience. But the best thing to do to really create equity is to take the fence down. Right? So despite how tall you are, there is no barrier that you have to see over. And that's the notion of equity. Too often we look at things and believe that equal means everyone gets the same treatment. But really what we're working towards is equity. And that's what I think the questions really spoke to the heart of. I wanted to commend the different projects and examples that we saw today because it speaks to interagency coordination. We struggle greatly, even in America, to have our education associations, our medical and healthcare sectors and agencies all working together to solve issues and problems that we face. Professional education, I want to thank you so much for the model that you've provided. Professional education still is one of the largest barriers for people with disabilities because so many professions or people who have professions don't have disabilities. So we bring a certain set of experiences, life experiences, and it really starts with professional education, being able to be provided for people with disabilities so that they can be a part of the solution. And one of my favorite concepts that we've talked about today, this is one of my favorite ones, is about really looking to young people, starting with children and how they play together, and seeing the opportunities for interacting with each other. Starting young is key. Another important example that I saw today really speaks to the notion of how belonging and connecting with others allows us to be open and really connect with one another in ways we otherwise couldn't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roberta Cordano, großartige Überleitung auch zu den Inhalten.
Excellent comment before we move on to the closing words by Harald Dossi, Secretary General of the Austrian Parliament. You have the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, all I have to say is thank you. I would like to thank Professor Cordano for her keynote speech, but also for the closing words you offered. I would also like to thank the presenters of the projects that have been selected for today's event. Thank you to all the experts who asked critical and practical questions. I would also like to say thank you to the members of the National Council in the Austrian Parliament who helped selecting today's projects. And I am certain that just like in past years, your presence means that you do not just present these projects, but that you will also continue to promote and foster the topic of inclusion in your political work and in the work in your parliamentary groups. And that's one of the important aspects and one of the reasons why we are holding this event here in Parliament, including with the contribution by members of parliament. Thank you to Mr. Essl and his team for their ever so intensive efforts. And last but not least, let me also thank our team, our colleagues from the parliamentary administration who helped prepare this complex event in the best of manners. I am convinced that all of you have contributed to offering an excellent platform today for these important and interesting projects. One of the questions I particularly liked was the final question: how do we continue? What are the next steps? Because this served to show that this is not just another nice presentation after which we will lean back and say, well, everything is going to be fine. No, rather, this is something we need to follow up on. Who can do what is the next question we need to ask to make sure that these projects can be brought to a successful end. I think what we've heard and seen makes us curious to hear more. There is going to be more. And I would like to wish Mr. Essl and his team all the best for the next 3 days at the UN premises, and all the best for the future of your excellent project.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Direktor Dossi, für
Thank you very much, Secretary General Dossi, for the final part of this event. As you know, we've prepared something special. Martin Essl already announced it in his opening remarks. We will use the Parliament in its full size for a spectacular event. A choir from Japan is visiting us, and they have children with and without disabilities. For those of you who will not be able to see it, we have various interpretations, artistic interpretations of very special musical pieces that you are likely to know. And to introduce the choir, let me now ask His Excellency Ryuta Mizuki, the Ambassador of Japan. Please, Ambassador, would you tell us what we are expecting now?
Like the other presentations before, I don't have a video clip in front of me. Sorry, I should have had one. This not being the case, let me say a few words and ask your patience for a few minutes while I speak in German. Sehr geehrter Herr Nationalrat,
President of the National Council, Sobotka, Mr. Essl, founder of the Essl Foundation, Ms. Corrado, director of the Gallaudet, or president of the Gallaudet University, members of Parliament, dear presenters and representatives of an inclusive society in Austria and the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to attend today's kickoff event of the Zero Project Conference 2024, Inclusive Education and IT. Inclusive education in Austria and worldwide is something we have heard a lot about today. I am delighted to announce the presentation by the White Hands Chorus Nippen. But first of all, let me sincerely thank the Austrian Parliament and the Essl Foundation for having invited a Japanese example for an inclusive society. I would also like to thank you for thinking of inviting this choir to the Austrian Parliament today. The White Hand Chorus Nippen is an inclusive youth choir. They represent unity and diversity. What does that mean? Half of the members of this choir are children and youth with disabilities. The choir has a vocal group and a signers group. So part of the children sing vocally and the other part uses sign language. So children with and without disability make music together. This is something that may not happen too often in everyday life. So this is the unique aspect and the unique inclusiveness of this choir. The choir was founded in 2017 and led by soprano singer Erika Kolon. It has 3 sites, Tokyo, Kyoto, and Okinawa, with a total of 2,000 members. About 100 of them, including their supporters, have come to Vienna, and you will be able to witness some of their musical pieces. And another highlight of the range of concerts of the choir here in Vienna will be their event at the UN premises in 2 days, where they will present the 9th Symphony of Beethoven. This is really a dream come true for these children. Their mentor, their icon, Ludwig van Beethoven, is someone they want to pay tribute to. As you all know, Beethoven himself had a disability. And our children see them as their patron saint. And of course, we all know that Beethoven, in his apartment here in Vienna, lost his hearing by and by. And in spite of this impairment, he continued composing many great pieces of music. So it seems to be like a wonder that Beethoven's spirit could inspire children in faraway Japan, and that these children then could travel all the way to Vienna to show their joy in life. This is quite remarkable, isn't it? White Hands Chorus Nippen will then travel on to Germany, to Bonn, where they will exhibit their performances in Beethoven House, so in the native town of Beethoven, where they will do another one of their wonders. It is my particular pleasure now to introduce the White Hands Chorus Nippen to you now. Let us be carried away by the inclusive youth choir of White Hands Chorus Nippen. May I ask for your attention, and please enjoy the chorus. Big applause for White Hand Chorus Nippon.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are so honored to perform in such a special places. We are the White Hand Chorus Nippon. Our members have several conditions. Some are deaf, some are visually impaired, and so on. By the way, have you eaten a rainbow? Our first song called Niji Furai. It is our favorite song. We hope you like it too.
We had huge discussion for the translating the lyrics, No Barrier to People with Disabilities. The Japanese sign language for people with disability is broken people. The word broken is used for things, not people, and we feel uncomfortable with this expression. Are we broken? No, we are not broken. We are different and unique. We started a movement to change a Japanese sign language so this song. And here, you will witness our version with our commitment to make a change in this world. Please enjoy. If you see me, take me just the way I am. We could change the world because we understand. If you pause our
Marki Weber.
Arigato, thank you very much, incredible. Und mit dieser Botschaft möchte ich auch zum Abschluss kommen unseres heutigen gemeinsamen Tages. Was braucht es mehr?
With this message, I would like to conclude this morning's event. What more do we need than saying we are not broken? There are other things that are broken and that need to be repaired. We have to make sure that everyone is taken on board, and this includes every child who has to have the right to follow their path of education according to their needs and their choices. And we are very pleased that we've been able to present these innovations to you. We will have the round tables with the members of Parliament now, and we are pleased to invite you to a reception in the columned hall following the end of this event. Let me thank everyone again who contributed to this morning's event, including the White Hands Chorus Nippon from Japan. Thank you also to everyone who followed us in the live stream. Thank you, arigato. All the best, and it has been a pleasure to guide you through this wonderful event today. And I'm sure when we will be looking back some years from now, we will see that this was the moment when we made inclusion even more complete in Austria. Thank you, all the best for the rest of today and for the Zero Project conference for the next 3 days.